We had a follow-up question about rituals and athletic performance. And whenever I think about rituals, I always go back to this great movie with Tom Hanks and John Candy called Splash. And basically, if you saw the movie The Shape of Water, it's the movie that Shape of Water was based on, except John Candy makes it a much funnier movie. Well, John Candy has this thing of picking up women that he started doing in the 8th grade. Of course, in the movie now, he's an adult. He's in his 30s, and he still does the same thing he did when he was 13. Because as he says in the movie, and it's a comedy, it worked then, it should work now. Well, that's my issue with rituals. Yes, rituals work. In fact, I'm a big believer in them. My biggest rituals, actually, is just following the checklist. So for me, if I get on a plane and I see the captain of the plane, touching his forehead in a synchronized ritual, I have very big concerns about the flight. But if I come on a plane and I see him going through the checklist, I'm okay with it. But as the season progresses, we all become ritualized. It'll be a magic drink. It'll be the way, when I was in college, my socks, I had a tube sock in one leg and I had a short sock in the other, and I had the best performance of my career. So obviously for the rest of that season, I had one tall sock and one short sock, because that's the way the brain works. One time when I was an athlete, I was convinced that wearing sweatpants made me throw farther than wearing our athletic shorts. I believed it, it worked. The job of the coach is to come in and always question the rituals, because rituals are fine until the day you can't follow your ritual. The nice thing about checklists is that checklists are always true and rituals come and go. So let's separate the two concepts. A checklist is a crystallized ritual, okay? And as a throwing season, as an athletic season, or any other thing you will pick up other rituals, and that's fine in the short term. I hope I answered that question clearly enough. I get this same question a lot about a program I have called Mass Made Simple. Mass Made Simple is a bus bench program. You do what I tell you to do. You do it for 6 weeks. 6 weeks in one day. You evaluate how it went, and then you can give me feedback. If you didn't gain mass, come on out here, punch me in the face. I'm happy if you followed it. But what happens is I'll get an email, Dan, I don't have a bench press. Can I substitute bench pressing for push-ups? No. I don't feel like doing the complexes. Can I do something else? Well, no, because then it's not Mass Made Simple. And the big one is squats hurt my knees, or I've got a bad back, so I can't do the squat program. And I know this sounds harsh and mean, but then that's not Mass Made Simple. And I can't guarantee it's going to work. I can't even tell you how it's going to work. There's someone on Amazon critiqued it and said, well, there's no leg presses, and all professional bodybuilders do leg presses. Well, yeah, and all professional bodybuilders shoot up with this, this, and this. But it's apples and oranges. They're two different things. So as much as I would like to say, oh yeah, make any substitutions you want, when it comes to a bus bench program where you're expecting results in a short amount of time, there are no substitutes. And that's a hard lesson to learn. Dan, I want to do your Olympic lifting program called Big 21 in the bench press. Will it work? Well, it might work, but you've substituted it out. So I don't know. No one's ever done it. You now are N equals 1, as we now say. You're by yourself. I don't mean to be cruel, and I get in the year 2019 and coming up to 2020 at warp speed that, everybody's special, everybody's an individual, everybody's changeable. But in my world of training and lifting weights, strength and conditioning, this is where you get into trouble, is you take a program and you start to pull the things out, and then the program falls apart. And then you come back and you say, well, what was it that I did? My answer is always, we didn't follow the program. It is a gift in a lot of ways. And it's too bad, because when I first started on computers were a lot less friendly. But I tell you one thing it taught you. It taught you discipline. When I first went online, I had to learn, I believe it was called HTML code. And you had to have this thing and this thing. And if you didn't put B slash, everything for 5,000 pages was in bold. And so you had to go back and find where you forgot to put that in. Very unforgiving. Now, if you go to a place like WordPress, you can highlight the whole area and press B, and it looks perfect. Mass Made Simple bus bench programs are 1998 HTML codes. They're very unforgiving. They have to be done exactly. But now it's 2019, 20 years later, and the computer and WordPress and the websites are all very friendly. The problem is this. Those friendly programs, that's Park Bench. The tough ones, the 6-week, 3-week, 2-week programs, those are bus bench, and you can't change anything on them. I'm not a bad person. I'm just telling you the truth. You know, speaking of Park Bench, and it's odd to think about it because I think that Easy Strength is a Park Bench program too. You know, you show up, you get the work done, and miracles happen. But people always ask me this question, goes, well, Dan, you know, you're a sports performance coach. Why would you have a program without peaking? Well, if you've read my work, I'm not a big believer in peaking. But I am a big believer in something called the Hangover Rule. And the Hangover Rule comes from many conversations I've had with world record holders in the throws. Now, this might not be true in the pole vault or high jump, where you know what's going to happen. You know how high the bar is. But in the throws, I wouldn't be surprised if in the other events, you could go back to the 68 Olympics with Lee Evans' famous 400-meter run, is very often a person breaks the world record when they have absolutely no expectations for improvement. I don't want to mention names, but I know of 2 current world record holders who on the morning of the event were extremely sick by bad decisions the night before. One famously threw up in a rose bush. The meet director walked over and said, you know, things look pretty good today. And so our future world record holder stands up, takes an easy throw, but that easy throw goes farther than it should. And as the competition progresses, everything is working, new world record, everybody's happy. I know this has happened several times, but I also think that this is the way of biology. This is the way the human body works. If you go into the gym 3, 4, 5 days a week and you work with the body, you don't stress it. You know, that's one thing I like about the work of Phil Maffetone and Mark Allen. You know, beating yourself down, just beat yourself down. Working with your body tends to lead to extraordinary performance. Well, the Hangover Rule reminds us that sometimes your best performances happen out of nowhere. I even got to tie this into real life. For those of us who are in relationships that last a long time, very often we tried to plan getting into a great relationship. But usually what happens is a number of bizarre factors link up and you end up meeting the love of your life. Like in the book 40 Years with the Whistle, I talk about meeting Tiffany. Basically, I was tired of the whole dating scene. I was never going to go out again. My assistant coach said, will you be my wingman at this party? I show up. He's being set up with Tiffany. 32 years later, here we are. No planning at all. I think that's how the world works in many cases. Things will knit together, sing together, and all of a sudden, boom, amazing things happen. I'm reading the book now, the autobiography of the guy who came up with fractals. And he's a big believer that the reason he was so successful is these random small events and learning experiences and odd bumping into people who said this funny thing allowed him to come to that leap in thinking that we now call fractals. So I just think that the Hangover Rule reminds me of the importance of getting the work in reasonably over time and letting everything build up in a natural way. So when it is time to perform, amazing things happen. One of my favorite things about the park bench workouts is that you do push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry, mobility, flexibility, core, and you just keep doing everything. And all of a sudden, by gently nudging the body along, great things happen. But when I work with athletes, I do want to just change up and make sure you understand one key component here. The push, the pull, and the squat are the hypertrophy moves. Those are the ones that build the bigger engines that everybody can see. But also those 3 movements deep overhead squats, deep front squats, even quality back squats, build mobility and flexibility. Correctly done presses, increase mobility and flexibility. Correctly done pulls, increase mobility and some flexibility. So those three movements are the ones that make your engine look good on the beach. But the other two movements, and I want to make sure you understand this, the hinge and the loaded carry family, those are the two that make athletic performance. The hinge gives us that snap that we're all looking for, and the loaded carries bring us that work capacity that's so important. In fact, in 40 years with the whistle, I call this snapacity. It's the ability to have a lot of snaps. And so as you go through park bench workouts, which honestly, I'm starting to think are probably more appropriate for athletes, except for these short little windows of intense training. But I'm starting to think that what happens over time with park bench workouts for athletes is that their engine gets bigger, their snap gets bigger, and their work capacity all get bigger in a way that's almost hard to see. And then you toss in a 2-week, 3-week, 6-week hit of something very specific at times and really radically change the body. In one of our essays, I talk about the importance of cycling food and the success we've had with cyclical nature of tossing a fasting week, going 0 carb for 4 or 5 days out of nowhere, and then having a carb feast, and how well that works with athletes. Now, for everybody else, oddly, as Maffey told us, everybody is an athlete. These same principles work really well. If you're a housewife, if you're just a normal person like I've become now, and you just want to look better, move better, and feel better, you're going to get that from the push. You're going to get some of that from push, pull, squat. You're going to get that ability to react to bad things with your hinge. And being a nice neighbor, you're going to get like the guy who helps move couches and sofas and refrigerators. You're going to get that from loaded carries. All of them. Never just one of them. There's been something on my mind recently, especially as I go through our website, danjohnworkouts.com, that I think is really important that I clarify. You know, when it comes to park bench workouts, you should really never miss a lift. You should never miss a rep. You should probably never miss a set unless something comes along, you know, illness, the flu, life, you know, I'm okay with that. But bus bench workouts, they're designed to be repeatable. And over a 10-year period of doing lifting weights 3 days a week, you're going to have a pretty good engine in 10 years if you actually do the program. You drink your water, you eat appropriately. When it comes to bus bench programs, we do have a problem though. And the problem is when my eyes go, whoa, it means that we made a mistake. Now, generally that's all on us for starting too heavy in the beginning, because bus bench programs are supposed to get you someplace. There's a movie that is nearly unwatchable, except for one part. The movie is called Troy, and it's an unwatchable. It's so bad, so overdone, except when Brad Pitt's in the film. And Brad Pitt plays Achilles. And I got to tell you, one of the things you learn when you read the Iliad, you're supposed to learn how you act as king, warrior, and prince. The Germans used to call them Verstenspiegels. These are books designed to teach a lesson, okay? Well, the lesson you're supposed to learn from Achilles is called arete, which is kind of this search for perfection. So the nice thing about park bench workouts, and this is why I like them so much, is that you're constantly trying to look more graceful, more masterful through every workout. But with a bus bench program, when it's 3 weeks, here we go, load it up. Let's get going. I'm also supposed to be watching for a certain level of grace. Now, CrossFit had this concept called the Slop Factor, where it's okay to have some crappy reps in there. I could never support that concept because everybody I talk to has never been injured on a good lift. Every person I know has always been injured on a bad lift. So one of the jobs as the coach in a bus bench workout is to stand back and go, this looks awful. In the Big 21 program, days 1, 2, and 3 should be, even though there's a ton of volume, still should be pretty doable. If you notice by day 2, you see a single miss on day 2, you stop the program because we went too heavy in the beginning. I would stop the program, regroup, and start again next Monday with even lighter weights. In fact, I would argue in the 9 workouts in the Big 21 program, you probably should never miss a rep. Now that is hard to do, but that's kind of the rule. When you're doing something like Mass Made Simple, I use this concept called up to 50, where you take your body weight and you squat, and your job is to get a total number of 50 reps. Well, where should you stop? Well, I argue you stop when the reps look at all difficult, ugly, unbeautiful, unmasterly. Your knees start to come in, go out, come in, go out. You start to roll over and sponge your back out. Done. Rack it, rest, rack and rest, rack and rest. You could do 50 singles if you want, and I'd be actually fine with that. It would take a long, long time, but at least you won't get hurt. So I think we get ourselves into that real grayish area when we talk about quality reps on a program that's designed to have an output in 2 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. And one of the problems is this: if we overshoot in the beginning, we undershoot at the end. And that's, if you talk to Marty Gallagher, he'd tell you the same thing. It's one of the hardest lessons to learn as a coach and, of course, as an athlete, is putting your ego on the shelf in the beginning and waiting for the fruits at the end. We use the Big 21 program, especially for throwers. So that'd be your discus shot, javelin, hammer, but your Highland Game guys and girls. And what we use this program for is, especially in areas like Utah, the Rockies, the Midwest, any place that's going to have some issues right around spring with weather. And what we try to do in this program is, what we're going to do is try to have 3 massively intense weeks. So if you use the bow and arrow image, we're going to pull and pull and pull and pull. And right before the season, pull even harder. And then, because that program is so hard, those 9 workouts, we have the mental ability for the athlete to let it go. Let it go. We're done. I don't want to ever lift weights again my whole career. So what we found was interesting with the Big 21 program, especially with high school kids, is we do the 3-week Big 21. The following week, we'd have 2 competitions, track and field meets, with no weightlifting on those meets. But on the Tuesday of that week, with the discus throwers and the shot putters a couple times, we would do 1,000 turns in a workout. And we would say, stretch, 1, 2, 3, stretch, 1, 2, 3, stretch. So we had someone say stretch, 1, 2, 3, someone count. You'd go in groups of 25 and 50, didn't matter. It takes about 45 minutes. When they go home after that workout, they are so exhausted from stretch 1, 2, 3. But here's the thing. Their brain is locked in to the rhythm of it. And I have had an athlete who was a 144-foot thrower in his first track meet throw the discus 182. Now, he was a year older. I know that. But a almost 40-foot improvement in one season in the first meet, we're doing something right. So what you try to do with the Big 21 is, this is the classic, pulling that bow as hard as you can, but the key is what you do after. You let it go. The only workout of that first week of the season is the 1,000 stretch 1, 2, 3s, the 1,000 drills, the single drills, okay? And the athletes are very fine with the fact they don't lift weights that week. And we used to get this early season pop from everybody. And then after that, we go into a traditional program. When it comes to loaded carries, if there is a rule, besides do them. Okay, so there's rule number 1, do them. But rule number 2 is a bit odd. Never do the same workout. Do your best to keep mixing and matching. We had a question from somebody that was really overdoing the volume. It's interesting because with that series of movements we do, where you do a hinge or a squat followed by either a sprint or a sled pull, I only recommend doing 3 of them. So set of 8 in the overhead squat, throw the bar and sprint away. I only recommend doing 3 of them. Now, if you still want to do more, that tells me one of 2 things. Either you didn't overhead squat heavy enough or you didn't sprint hard enough. So it's hard and hard. That's why you can only get 3. When you start over-voluming loaded carries, you're starting to turn yourself into a coal miner from the 1800s, okay? And that's fine, except they didn't have a long, great, wonderful life, okay? What you're using the loaded carries to do is build work capacity. And I think this is the key to why it's so important to never do the same workout twice. If you do suitcase carries one day and you fall with kind of a heavy backpack the next day, and then maybe a heavy bag carry the next day, and then add sleds to that, add push a prowler the next day, you're constantly asking your body to adapt. The moment you feel that loaded carries are bearing you down, you're going too heavy, too much. You should always feel lighter and better after. One small thing I want to tell you. Now, Mike Boyle does this in his lectures now, but we had noticed the same thing. In fact, Coach Mon wrote about it in 1964, that when you're doing things like sleds and prowlers, keep the load much lighter than you think. In fact, I'm recommending to people now, experiment with prowlers at 95 to 135 pounds only and increase the quality of the movement. I see people doing sleds sometimes, and you see the sled starting to get all this sideways motion because the person isn't sprinting with the sled. They're kind of speed skating. And I get it. There'd be a value for that. But Coach Mon called that wallowing like a pig. And what you're going to find sometimes is if you overload the loaded carries, which is kind of an odd statement, I get. But if you overload the loaded carries, you're getting yourself into that same situation where you're beating yourself down. So if you're ever having problems with loaded carries, certainly have a tough day. In my world, that's Friday. Friday is a tough loaded carries day. But you got to do a little bit every day. And the idea is to keep moving things around, keep changing things, keep your volume reasonable someday, raise your load another day, occasionally have a high load, high volume day. But I don't know if you'd want to do that more than once a month if you want to keep coming back and keep repeating the workouts. You know, one of my favorite things when I do workshops, I was just up in Portland this last weekend. I do another one tomorrow morning, which just amazes me. But as I review everything I teach in coaching and throwing, coaching football, helping with wrestling, teaching poetry classes, it seems to me if there is a secret to all this stuff, it's repetition. My old job when I was an administrator, I had a sign on my desk, repetition is the mother of implementation. And I love that phrase. A buddy of mine did it in Latin. I don't remember how it goes now. But one of the things, as I go through every area of life, the same truths happen over and over. You don't marry somebody and you say, I love you. And that's just going to have to do for the next 50 years. It's because repetition. So what we have here is my now what grid from the book Now What. And this is the way my brain works, folks. So just get used to it. So there's 4 quadrants. We have a 4 quadrant here. And there's some words on the top: health, longevity, fitness, and performance. I use Maffetone's definition for health. That's the optimal interplay of the human organs. And you find out your health by blood tests, by going to the eye doctor, the dentist, the medical doctor. Yesterday I gave, it's called Power Red. I give 2 whole units of blood about 3 or 4 times a year, and they return the plasma to me. And it brings my hematocrit levels down. As I age as a male, my body is rusting itself out. And one of the easiest ways to deal with this is to donate blood. And not only that, is that I help, as I was told yesterday by a nice young lady, I helped 14 people. So win-win for the community and myself. Flossing your teeth every day, twice a day if you can. That's health. And if your teeth are healthy, generally your cardiovascular system is healthy because you're not pumping infection around your body every time your heart goes like this. Longevity is 2 things, quantity and quality. My wife's family, the Hemingways, they live a long time. My family, not so much. But our quality of life is extraordinary. Yeah, I think back, my brother Phil, I just buried him just a few weeks back now, and he was friends with Ron Howard. He was friends with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The San Francisco Chronicle wrote an article about him, about how he showed up so much. And maybe my brother Phil died young, but he had 1,000 people at his funeral, including every fire engine basically in Northern California. So maybe his quantity wasn't high, but his quality was. The word fitness, I picked that definition up from my old high school friend Charles Darwin, who cheated off me in biology. It's the ability to do a task. And I like that. If you win the Ironman triathlon, but you've got brain cancer, you're not healthy, but you're fit to win that race. And then, of course, there's that last word, which I live. This is the people I work with, performance. That's one of my favorite things to do, is hang out with my friends over at Mark Fisher Fitness, who are Broadway stars, TV models, guys on movies. It is weird sometimes now I watch movies and go, hey, I know that guy. It's delightful. But the thing I learned from actors, actresses, musicians is how to perform. See, my athletes and me, someone calls my name and I have to step up and go. I can't say, oh, I did the workout this morning and I've already put it up on the whiteboard. No. Right now, 9 a.m., Spokane, June 26, John, you're up. I step in the ring. That's performance. Now, on the grid that's in front of you, I have things that are once or twice and things that are ongoing or permanent. I believe that anything that you can do once or twice, I use Rob Wolf's great term, shark habit. One bite and it's gone. On your notes there, I put it in red. These are take things off the table. Get them out of your head. And it's funny, I'm very good at filling out the form. I check the box. I write the check. My daughter just got married. Let the bride know you're coming. And then as we move up to ongoing things that are health and longevity, I use Pat Flynn's term, pirate maps. Pirate maps. Go to St. John Island, find the white coconut tree, take 7 paces to the west, dig down, there's your map. This is what I call, this would be like, do this from now on. On the back of my computer here, I have my daily pirate map. I start off with my sleep ritual the night before. I make coffee. I make my to-do list. I wake up. I'm grateful. I do a 1-moment meditation every day. A couple days, 3 days a week, I do my ABA, BAB workouts with Ben. And then I do original strength. And then number 5 is 8 different vegetables a day. I figure if I do that every day, if I follow that every day, that's probably statistically the best things I can do to be around in 20 years. So this is checklists. These are menus. I got shopping lists. I can't imagine a refrigerator without a shopping list on it. I've been doing this since late 80s, early 90s. And I go to the store. I always have a shopping list. That way I don't have to go to the store twice. Because you always go back for something like ice or something like that because you forgot. So you have to have a shopping list. In fitness and performance, there's an interesting thing down there that says peaking, planning, and programming. And the funny thing is, I don't necessarily believe in any of those. Now I do, but I don't. And this is do this until. The knock I have on all that stuff is life gets in the way, man. So the very first thing I do when even myself, or if I work with somebody, is I get out those, you get them at office space. We'll leave that because that's actually funny the way I said that. If you know the movie, the 12-month calendar. And I tell the person, we got a red pen, we got a yellow highlighter and a green highlighter. And you go through with the red pen and you X out all the dates you're not gonna be able to do anything. And the person goes, no, I'm here all the time. Okay. Are you going on vacation? Oh yeah, we're going to Jamaica for 2 weeks. So you'll be here. You're gonna fly in every morning, work out with me, and then fly back to Jamaica every day. Well, no, that's silly. Here's the red pen. Oh yeah, I get what you're saying. Oh, my daughter's wedding is on a Friday. You gonna come in that morning and work out with me? No, it'll be in Nevada. Do you want to maybe X out that weekend? So you X out all those days. Now, I think it's appropriate to X out New Year's. I would X out some bowl during the Christmas time, some of the bowl game days, because I just know that I'm going to be sitting in front of the TV watching 17 bowl games. I know that. So why even plan for it? Okay. It can be if you're an accountant, it could be most of the month of April. If you're a school teacher, September, October, maybe August, September, depending on your school system. Certainly May and June, I would be careful. If you're a coach, you got to, I wouldn't say, okay, oh, now we're starting to go, Then the next color is yellow, and that's cautionary times of the year. And you'd yellow out those days where things are going to be around. Like, it wouldn't be, you're not like in another country, but there's going to be a burden of stuff on you. From most people I know, it'd be probably from Thanksgiving to New Year's, where it's like things are going to come up during these 6 weeks. And then finally, the next thing you do is you take out the green pen. And then you kind of box out those times when you can go for it. And my experience and the experience of many other people, it comes down to this. Most people can go for it about 2 times a year from about 3 to 6 weeks, which ties in directly to my concept of the bus bench. I never realized how right I was. That sounds so full of myself. How right I was about bus bench workouts until we started doing the calendar assessment. And then following that, then we can kind of go, okay, from Thanksgiving to New Year's, just try not to be too stupid. Try to come in 2-3 days a week if you can. Let's do the fundamental works. Let's get a little bit of heart rate going. Let's do some mobility, flexibility, and let's always eat. For every drink you have a glass of water, and always eat every vegetable that's offered before you eat anything else. Pretty simple? I think it is. Then finally, it comes to where I live, and that's basically principles. Principle comes from the root prime, first, and simple comes from the same root as capture. Principle means to take first, to capture first place. And our job in coaching is to find out those things that win. Now, in my world, in discus throwing, it's pretty simple. Throw far. That's the principle. Now, we can spend hours discussing the nuances, but really it comes down to throw far. In American football, John Heisman told us in 1931, block, tackle, and fall on the ball. And yet you can watch the Super Bowl and watch people not fall on the ball, miss tackles and miss blocks, and cause them a Super Bowl. So what our job is in performance is to find out what's crucial, what's true, what's real. And then my job is to repeat it to death. So if you fall, let's now review all 4 boxes. Shark habits. What I'm trying to do in shark habits is get it done. Clear it. And every day I'm trying to clear that table, clear that table, clear that table. With shark habits, these are the 5 things that I think are the best thing for my life. I'm going to repeat those 365, 366 every 4 years, days for the next 20 years. And over time, we're going to build it to here. In principles, we're going to find those things that work. And we're going to beat those to death as a coach, as a trainer, as a parent, as an investment strategy. That other box on peaking, planning, and programming, those are those little moments in life where you take time out and focus. I think retreats are wonderful for people. I think they can be life-changing. I know of people who've gone to couples retreats, and it's really energized their marriage. But you can't be at a couples retreat 52 weeks a year. It wouldn't work. I think it's important to have quality time with your kids. Take them to the happiest place on earth. We won't give any money to Disneyland, and take their cell phones out of their hand. Don't let them have any social media, and walk around and spend the day together. But you can't go there every day all the time. So Mass Made Simple is a wonderful program. And one guy said to me, "It's so good, why don't you do it all the time?" And I just looked at him like, obviously you've never done it once, have you? Well, no, yeah, I know. You haven't done it. I know you haven't done it because you said that statement. So for me, the master quality for coaching in life is repetition. If you want to if you don't want to get fat in the first place, to quote Art Devaney, eat quality, sensible, vegetable-based, with protein, with water meals 2 to 3 to 4 times a day for the next 20 years and don't ever miss one. I think that would work. You got to repeat that, though. You want to have a good relationship, be a quality person who wants to spend time with that person and repeat that over and over and over again. If you want a good dog like I have over here, Sirius Black, you need to brush him and take him for walks and let him know you love him. There's very few secrets in life, and success is the simplest secret. You got to do what's right over and over and over.